It's time for another Dice Tower review with Tim Jennette.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jennette the Metal Meeple, and in this video we're taking a look at a small card game called Brutal Kingdom, designed by Michael Reineck and published by Cosmos in 2016. It is for 3 or 4 players and it takes about 30 minutes to play. Now, Brutal Kingdom is a small card game. You get 4 cards in each round, and you're playing them, and as the round goes, or turns go by, you're playing them on top of each other, and eventually you've played all 4 of your cards. The problem is somebody can come by and kill one of your characters, and it kills all the cards underneath of it. So it's a kind of an order of operation, which one you want to play based on what you know and information of the special abilities and such. You're trying to get influence points. It's got a really cool scoring system. Let me show you how it plays, and we'll come back and I'll tell you what I think. So here's most of the components to Brutal Kingdom. We have our chapel card that goes in the center of the table. It'll track the 4 rounds of the game. You have all the influence markers and the elimination tokens. We'll come back to those in a minute. And you have 2 decks of cards. You have the light colored cards and the dark colored cards. If you're playing with 3 players, you do remove 2 specific ones out of each deck. Otherwise, in a 4-player game, you use everything. Each player is going to receive 2 dealt randomly to them of the light colored cards, and they're going to select one of these to keep, and the other will be passed face down to the player to their left, which means you'll receive one from your right, and that'll give you 2 of your cards. There should be 2, I say should, but there will be 2 light colored cards left over. And then you're going to do the same thing with the dark colored cards. You'll shuffle these up, give 2 out per player, 2 will be left over. These are used for special abilities from the different characters. You're going to choose one of these to keep, pass the other one to your right, and you're obviously going to get that one from your left, and now you have 4 cards. With the start player beginning, they're going to choose one of the 4 cards they have and play it face up in front of them. We're going to play this white knight, or I'm sorry, the black knight, and his ability is that if you don't get a shield at the end or influence marker at the end of the round, he'll give you one of your choice. So we play this face up, and the next player will go. We're not going to do their special abilities, we're just going to skip over it. And then, you know, if you're playing a 3-player game, it's back to me, and then I'm going to choose one of these to play as well. Say I choose the bishop. Now it's going to go over top my card into a stack here. The reason this is important is because it conceals the black knight. He is no longer technically in play. More reason why it's important, and the reason this is called Brutal Kingdom, is because characters can be killed. If I had the king on top, and then somebody were to play the assassin card, then when the assassin comes into play, he will eliminate the king or queen. But if the king was underneath my other cards, it's no longer in play, so the assassin pretty much is worthless at that point. Unless the queen's out there from somebody else, which would be exciting. Now, the cards do have a couple of symbols here. Let me show you the king. They have the influence markers that you'll receive at the end of the round, and then you have 0, 1, or 2 of these symbols. You're going to have the cross daggers, which means this card will kill another card in the game. The skull and crossbones means that it can be killed by another character in the game, and we'll show you that with this handy dandy reference sheet here, the murder matrix, as I like to call it. Basically, it shows you all the 4 characters that can kill and what they will kill. The assassin can kill the king and the queen. The king and the queen can actually kill each other. If you read their special ability, the queen will be eliminated when it's played if he's in play, and vice versa on the queen. Then you have all the rest of them down here, and it also shows you how many influence markers they'll gain if they stay alive, obviously. The second card each player gets is a reference of all the cards in the game. You've got the light colors and the dark colors and their rank, and then the different ability markers, or sorry, the influence markers and the kill markers and stuff like that. It doesn't actually show you their special abilities, obviously, but you learn those pretty quickly. The other reason this game's called Brutal Kingdom, though, is because if a character is killed and it's in your stack, so say the 3rd card I played was my king, and then the next player plays the assassin, not only does it kill the king, but it kills every card in that stack underneath of him. So all 3 of these will die, and then I'll be left with the 4th card that I play as long as it stays alive. Whenever you kill somebody, you gain one of these elimination markers. The game comes with 3-pointer ones if you want to trade in, because obviously you might run out of these. And these are worth 1 point at the end of the game. You only get one of those no matter how many characters in a stack dies, but it's still important to get those because not only did you get a point, but you also stopped this player from gaining all these influence markers as well. At the end of a round, let's say these are the 4 characters that have, first thing you're going to do is look at the rank of each player's stack, and whoever has the highest rank is going to be the first player. They also get to collect their tokens first, which is important later on because these tokens piles will get low and low. By the 4th round, some of these might even be depleted. So at the end of a round, I would get 2 blue influence and 2 green influence. This guy does not count because I gain his, simply says if you receive no influence markers, you get to pick one. So at the end of the round, I would get 2 blue influence and 2 green. We would then shuffle up all the cards of both colors and then redeal like normal, like I showed you earlier, and that would be 1 full round. You would mark a round by placing an elimination token on one of these spots just to track the game. However, there is a character in the game that will it's the Saint, and he can take one of these influence markers instead and actually reserve it in one of these spaces. Because at the end of the game, you're going to get victory points based on these influence markers and your elimination tokens. So if, for instance, at the end of the game, there were only 2 left here and 1 was reserved, let's say it kind of looks something like this at the end of 4 rounds. In this case, say I had these tokens right here, right? I would get victory points equal to however many tokens are left of that color. So we'll just do yellow, but there's 2 left and 1 was reserved on this chapel, meaning that each one is worth 3 points, so 3, 6, 9. I would do the same for green. Obviously there's a ton of them out there, but those would be depleted or at least given out a lot. And then the same for blue. You get a point for every elimination token, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, just to kind of give you an example of some of these cards and what they do, you can see here like the Inquisitor. When he comes out, you name a card, and if a character has it, they have to swap it from their hand with one in the middle, you know, because it has those 4 cards. So say somebody had the Abbot and I came out and said the Abbot, they have to swap that out. This is really good to weed out assassins from players' hands. If you have the King or Queen or whatever, the Intriguer, you can swap him with the character in play with the highest rank. That's pretty cool for various reasons, actually. The Monk can swap a card from your hand with any card in the middle of the same color. And that's also important to note because each player's hand is also going to be shown on the back. Usually it won't be all 4 color or 4 of one color, but you can tell from another player, oh, he's got 3 light colored cards left, and you can kind of deduce what they may have by using this card. Anyway, so we got the Clairvoyance, which will, you may secretly look at all 4 of the cards in the middle of the table, and we'll just do a couple more here. The Saint is the one I was telling you. He gets to take one of the influence markers and place it on the current round to kind of reserve that one, which reserves it for everyone, but it makes sense if you're collecting a lot of blues and people start collecting them, you want to make them at least worth something. The Executioner is is a unique assassin because he doesn't just kill what's already out there. You actually name a character, and when it gets played, he kills it. So it's the deductive situation is really high with him. You want to make sure you kind of understood what has been played. The Witch, you can look at the cards in one player's hand. So you can see all their abilities are kind of different. There are a couple that are slightly the same, but for the most part, they're pretty unique. So anyway, you play 4 rounds. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. And there you go. That is Brutal Kingdom. And I will start by saying this game can be super brutal, especially on your first plays. If you or people you know don't really do well on first plays, if the game doesn't go very well in their favor, this is a game that I would definitely try to get them to play and make sure they understand it at the beginning, because there's been a couple of times I've played this with newer players, or not new players, but new to this game, and as they played it, they were like, wow, I almost quit, rage quit, because this was so bad. Because you only play 4 rounds, and if your whole stack dies because you don't really know the special abilities or what's going on, then it can be super I don't know, it just hits you really hard and you're like, man, I don't like this game at all, right? But that plays into the strategy a lot, because that's going to happen, and that has to happen, because the scoring in the game drives it that way. The scoring is by far one of my favorite scoring methods in a smaller card game like this, because you want to take a lot of a resource, or take a lot of one color of influence, and make it worth a lot to you, but the other people are going to know that and try to play those cards as well and get a piece of that pie, right? But if they take too much of that pie, then that color's worth nothing because there's no more tokens left. And that's where the Saint comes in. They can lock in those colors and make them at least worth 1 or 2 points, which is phenomenal. It's really cool. And then on top of that, if you see somebody trying to, take the influence out of your colors that you're trying to get, then you want to like murder them, right? You want to get a character that can take out maybe the yellow scoring characters or whatever if you're going after yellow. So the scoring is just really fun. It drives the gameplay as well. And I think that also plays in the fact that you need to play it a bunch of times and play it with people who are kind of skilled, equally skilled, because they'll see that. And if you bring somebody else in, they're going to be severely handicapped. And it's important for them to understand that in the beginning that, it may not play out the way you think it is, and you want to give it a chance. So the components are great. I wish the influence markers were slightly bigger, but it's not a big deal. I do like the card size, and then that's really cool because with smaller card games, it really helps to have a bigger game or bigger cards because you can, it's just neat to see it all on a table and everything. It doesn't really fit in your pocket, but I don't really carry them around like that anyway, so it works out for me. I will say one thing about the components though, these reference cards, these are really cool and they work really well. However, the backs of them are blank. And one thing I've always said or heard from my players that I teach this game to is that they wish they had a reference for all the special abilities. I don't know why they couldn't have put all the light ones on one card and the dark ones on the other card on the back sides of these. That would have made perfect sense. Even if they were just kind of like a shorthand or maybe like a couple, something to kind of give you an idea, or even just like pictures of it or symbology or whatever. So that would have been neat. It's not a big deal. I guess you can probably find something online to substitute for that. The only negative I have with the game is the 3-player game. And it's not because, there's less cards or less people or anything like that, but because there's one card that makes it irritating to me, and that's the Witch. The Witch will allow you to look at a hand of another player, and in a 3-player game, you've seen all. If it's the first card you play, you have now seen all 4 of this player's card, and you know one of this player's card because you passed them one of those cards at the start of the round. So 5 of the 8 cards in play, which is crazy amount of information. The other 4 are gone from the game, and there's 4 in the middle of the table. So it's just a lot of information for a 3-player game. Maybe that would have been cool to house rule you can only see the light or dark cards of a player. That might be kind of a neat change, but then it becomes less useful throughout the round. But so that, I don't know. That's just the one beef I have with it, and it's kind of maybe a meta to our gaming group. Maybe other gaming groups don't find it that bad off. So either way, this game is awesome. I love the scoring. It's a great little card game. It has completely replaced Love Letter for me. I know, before you go crazy. For Love Letter, I only played it 3 and 4 players anyway. I did not like the 2-player version of it as much. So I really didn't play it. I just rather play something else. And this just replaces it. I mean, it scratches the same itch and it has a little bit more strategy. Or maybe it's just because it's fresher and I've played Love Letter a ton over the years. So I highly recommend this game if you like small card games, or if you have people that like Love Letter, things like that. So especially like the kind of the deduction element to it, where you start out with a pool of cards and it gets smaller and smaller as you're playing. This is phenomenal in that regard. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at timjennette@gmail.com. Comment below. Check out my social media stuff at the handle. Check out my podcast, Meeple Core. And until next time, keep on rocking and rolling dice.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.